That was awesome.
I did not hear the finger gun sound. I just want to say.
That's respect. All right. We're here doing a little Dynasty breakdown after the initial draft. So I think you have something prepared for the start of this.
Yeah, is this show is this the High Risers or is that only for our high school league? Does this show have a different name?
It's the unnamed podcast. We just figured
Okay.
what the world needs more right now is three white dudes doing a fantasy football podcast.
I
The
agree.
world
I
needs
agree.
some more of that.
Especially with exciting segments like what we're about to have. I wish there we go. Okay, I wanted a different view. All right, so I've prepared a little something fun before we dive into the nitty-gritty of this league. This is a truly sad day in the league, or the day we all had to give Sager $1. So as you guys may remember, Sager, if you could advance to the next slide, Rashi Rice got arrested slash probation slash something, and I said I was going to make a Reddit post about if we should give Sager the $11 because obviously there was a lot of debate over this issue. So I did, and I will admit I expected this post to get no traction. I didn't think anyone would see it, or I thought the mods of r/Dynasty FF would delete it, but they did not, and it actually got a lot of interesting comments. The post is here; you can read it. I won't read the whole thing, but I explained the situation to people. I gave them the wording. The first guy to have a rostered player get arrested. We're currently in round 23, yada, yada, yada. Should my friend win this massive amount of money? I will say, I think some people in the comments actually thought that I thought $11 was a massive amount of money. I feel like that was pretty clearly tongue in cheek, but to each their own. So, anyways, I wanted to go through some of these comments. Sometimes it's fun to get a little reality check and hear from people outside the league. And there were a lot of interesting comments. So, Sager, if we could go ahead and advance to the next
I
slide.
wanted to give you some credit for your title first. The $11 is really eye-popping. It's kind of like speed limit 27 miles per hour. You're like, oh,
Hmm.
27. Like I'm gonna remember that. So I think that was good engagement bait
I
by
appreciate
the
that. I
reporter
appreciate that.
there.
Maybe that is what got the post some traction. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
regardless, a lot of comments. So this is the top response. So if there's one response that symbolizes maybe the voice of the people, this is it. 841 upvotes. 841 people chiming in on our league. More if people downvoted this. I couldn't believe it. This guy says, based on the spirit of the league, I say yes. So pretty simple, succinct argument. Spirit of the rule. It's a fun rule, give them the money, is what this guy said. But maybe others feel differently. Let's go to the next slide. Spoiler alert, no one feels differently. This guy was impressed at how fast this happened after we made the rule. My username is this, says, dude, he should get double for how quickly it happened. I don't agree with that personally. I'm not big on $22 payouts, but 40 upvotes for this guy. And obviously, if you guys have any thoughts on any of these comments, feel free to chime in. I want to hear from people in the league as well. But I just thought some of these were
Well,
interesting.
I might be a bit biased, so I'll leave
Well,
the
as we're going to
comments
see
reflect
later,
the
you might be a bit biased. Yes, let's go to the next slide. All right, these are a series of comments about how we are awful people and or cheap. So this guy, only 11 upvotes, but I thought this was a fun message. Karl Marx says, let's add a fun little wrinkle to this league, immediately tries to suck the fun out of the little wrinkle. So I guess that's what we tried to do. One thing I don't really think people understand is that the $11 is not the problem. I think our league just likes to debate stuff. So like I think we had more fun debating this than we would have just giving you the $11. But I don't know if people really understand that. But I did think this was a funny message from Carl.
Oh, Carl.
All right. Orange Horton from the Seahawks, Tory Horton, not sure. He says for 74 upvotes, can't imagine being in a league where 11 people are complaining about giving up $1. So obviously this guy sees us as cheap. Again, I don't know that the $1 is the issue, but that's how the people in these comments are clearly starting to take it. One more message on the stink and or cheap front here. This one is the only one with cursing, so I had to bleep it out. Of course, we are a family-friendly podcast after all. This first guy didn't. He says, why would anyone want to be in a league where members fight over $1, pay the man and move on? WTF is even going on for more than 100 upvotes. And then this guy had probably my second favorite message. We'll get to my favorite. And he says, poverty league. And he didn't say So 45 upvotes for calling us all poor, which I found pretty funny. And then finally, this is my favorite message out of all of them 518 upvotes. I think this was number two on the comments. This guy says to pay the $11, but he includes the famous line, laugh off the $11. It's a story for you and your bros to talk about for years over some beers. And of course, we've all talked about how Anderson and Austin and Zach will enjoy catching up over a beer and talking about Rushy Rice and his $11. So good suggestion there from the Cal slate.
I
There was one more little mystery here, if you can advance, and then that'll be the end of this presentation. There was one comment that made me think, who is this guy? Not this guy in the picture. This guy is a representation of how I was thinking when I read this comment if I were blurry. If we could go to the next one, I blurred out the username because I was so sure that this sounded like someone I knew. I was like, I don't want to dox a fellow league member. I definitely know this guy. He
mhm.
says, only 3 upvotes, not a super popular comment. Sounds like a guy down on his luck. Give him the money for sure. I thought that was interesting. To either of you guys, does that sound like someone you know? Does that ring any
I
bells?
just think that's a pretty good take, like a pretty good fair take.
Okay, fair, nuanced take. Isaac, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems like they have at least a somewhat strong opinion about where the money should be going.
Hmm. Interesting. A strong opinion, a real stake in the issue. Let's move on to the next slide. I decided to do a little research. This person, I realize I blurred out their username, but based on these posts, you could still find them if you cared enough. But he had 2 posts. One I didn't include. It was a post about the game Destiny. And the other
That's
was
a good
his
game.
post.
That's crazy. I
What'd you
love
say?
that game.
Interesting. That is interesting. The second post was this one. It's on the Titans subreddit. It's called Back to Basics, and it was around the time of the last draft. And he's saying that the Titans should actually go in a direction that no one was thinking
Well,
and
first,
draft
I think he
after the
brings a
game.
very good point with that first sentence. Whoever
And
this
he
is.
says, yes, he says, I would like to start by telling Amy to sell the team. So I found this very interesting. And based on this, there were actually 2 people that this could be because this back to basics post really actually sounds like Grant Moore to me. I just have to say, as I was reading it. Plus, he plays the game Destiny. Unfortunately, I happen to know who this is. And if we could go to the next slide, the big reveal. This is our commissioner, Will Sager. Now, some people would argue maybe it's a little corrupt to get involved in the Reddit discussion yourself and pose as an ordinary citizen. But I honestly admire his initiative in getting involved, and I think we should give him the $11 anyway, so I have no problem with it. But I did think that was funny that he was participating in his own discussion, and I hope you guys enjoyed that look at the comments because it was much more active than I expected it to
That was
be.
great. I will say,
Yeah, that's
yeah, you go.
so I really enjoyed I did a quick scan of the post, saw a bunch of comments, decided I didn't care to read through it, but I did actually really enjoy looking through all the post history of the user who posted that, Roku underscore city underscore 63. So if anyone has like 20 minutes to kill and wants to chuckle, just go to that Reddit user, look at some of their posts. It's a very fun read.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'm disappointed that I've exposed myself. I was looking at Roku City when I made the username, and obviously everyone knows my lucky number. But yeah, I'm not ashamed of anything I've posted. So feel free, go take a look.
who do you think the Pacers should draft?
It was the quantity for me. It was the
All right,
quantity.
bro. That was a low blow. That was a low. I'm taking my dollar back.
Uh,
It did make me glad if we have a second. It made me glad that the Pacers usually aren't bad because watching the lottery was awful. Like it was so nerve-wracking. I was like, I'm relying on ping pong balls. So I'm glad they're usually not like that because that was not a fun experience. I feel bad for like the Kings and the Nets and all those teams.
mm. And yeah, and
I'll
speaking of
watch
the
the team draft.
lottery, as oh, what you got there? Some
I
I
was
spaghetti.
got
gonna
I
I
got
was
some
talking about
spaghetti.
the Pacers
I gotta
draft pick
leave
for the
around
lottery.
like noon to 12:30 for my story today. So I'm trying to accelerate the process, eat and podcast at the same time. I hope that's all right.
Mhm. But yeah, speaking of the lottery, we obviously we did our draft based on last year's ish standing. So I think you two probably benefited the most from this redo. I think y'all were a good 3 to 4 years away from like a winning record. You can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we all learned a lot.
I would say I was closer to 5 or 6.
Yeah, maybe yeah, maybe 3 or 4.
Some would argue my situation did not change despite resetting the league as we take a look at my team here.
Yeah, so we can look and I can bounce back and forth between the actual draft and then just these rankings I think are interesting. So we're all obviously very close, but we'll just go in order from, I believe this is overall rank, and we can just discuss from there. So first overall rank, we do have Captain Rick, kind of propped up by his draft rank, which I think is just taking into account how bad they think his team is and they think he will have a good pick next year. And then has Brock Bowers
Interesting.
basically.
That is real. That's crazy to think he's going to be trash. And so that means he has a really valuable team. That's really funny.
Yeah, wait, what number one overall rank of what? Is this just situation overall, or what is
I
this?
assume it takes into account all of the ranks. So like his tight end rank and his draft rank are high, but everything else is terrible.
Yeah.
Um,
It looks like over on the left, it says overall rank and then his total value, and then each asset he has a value. So I guess he just has the highest total value among his
yeah,
team.
I'll be.
Hmm.
We can look. I guess he'll have the highest value pick. We look at the next guy.
So he's like
No,
Anderson's like
the picks are worth the
700
same.
points,
Yeah, the
900
picks are
points.
worth the same. Well, but somehow, I guess maybe if people have traded picks, he has my third round picks. That gave him an extra 1,000. Maybe that's all it is. So if
True.
that's the case, I'm starting to question this number one ranking, which seems solely off the strength of one extra third round pick that he has.
That does seem to be
Um,
propping up. It's kind of like the whole economy is propped up right now by this one third round pick. But I don't really like his team. I don't like Caleb Williams personally. I think he's a little overrated. Brock Bowers, obviously a great asset. He's already been in talks though about moving on from him. I think the full rebuild will be coming within the first 5 weeks of the season. So I'd expect his draft to go back up. Does have young guys like Tet, Lad, Adunze. So, pretty Bears heavy here. And we'll just see where he ends up at the start of the year.
I thought his team was pretty solid because it's young. I think a rebuild would be weird for him because most of his best players are under 25. Like I could see him maybe selling Kyron Williams or, tanking for the first overall pick or, if some injuries come his way or something. But I like his draft. I thought he did really well.
Sources from inside the locker room have just told me that he doesn't, GM's not happy with the team,
Mm.
not his team, so
I
we'll
will
see.
say I've been reached out to for some trades that feel tanking adjacent, and I was like, bro, do you know who you're talking to? Because we probably don't need to be talking. But from talks I've had, I would say Sager might be on the money. Not saying he should. I see what Isaac's saying, but I think that's where he is leaning right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kings Bulls trade.
Okay, number two, in a last dance type situation immediately after the initial draft. So average age is only 25, but I think this mostly stems from having Christian McCaffrey and Travis Kelce. AJ Brown's a bit of an older player as well, but seems to obviously be going for it this year. Another guy who I think will be a buyer at the deadline, just trying to get a championship now. Um, Probably looking to buy a tight end or shore up that running back room. What are y'all thinking about Team Anderson, a back-to-back champion, knows how to win in this league?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has some holes. Like that's what I was looking at. I was like, this doesn't look. It looks fine, probably better than my team, but it doesn't look like a championship team to me. But I guess once you first draft, I don't know if anyone is really a championship team. That's what you make the moves for. Because I definitely think, you would probably want a better RB2. I know Chuba was really good for me last year, but new situation. And then tight end, like if Kelsey goes down, or even we don't know how good Kelsey's going to be. So he would definitely want to make some moves. I also just think it is so funny to be called the last dance by this thing when there was no
No
previous
first
dances.
dance. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, this is it. It's like, what? I just picked this team. So I find that funny, but definitely needs to make some moves. But I mean, he's got a good foundation. I think he has some good depth receivers that he could possibly trade to get stronger at other positions too, if he was interested in that.
It all depends on CMC. If CMC's healthy come week 8, Anderson's buying. If CMC has another injury riddled career or season, then I think he's selling at the deadline.
Yeah. AJ Brown was my favorite pick from him. He sniped me. I got double sniped. It was what round was that?
It's 5-8.
Fifth.
Fifth round, Kenneth Walker, AJ Brown back to back. Would have maybe gone Cam Ward. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But a decent draft from Anderson. Winning a championship the first year, it's the same as, winning 5 years down the line. So I think that's what a lot of us missed the first time we played. So he's going a different strategy there. And then moving on to the number three overall rank, and the new guy, Ben Peter, also Anderson. Put a team name in a little. Come on, man. It ruins my immersion when I see Anderson Little with the sleeper bot. But anyway, back to Ben, new guy. So looking to make a splash in this first year. Very very solid team. I like the Harold Fandon pick. Tight end's a pretty tough thing to fill in a 12-man league. Um, but just young guys, Joe Burrow. I don't like Bryce Young at all. I think he'll be changing his team name soon. And then guys like Gibbs, Pickens, and Burden. Burden, especially, kind of a wild card, could be um, the linchpin of where he'll end up being. But young team could also be a buyer. I think the contender's correct. Probably needs to add a few more pieces if he really wants to go for it this year.
Yeah, I like his team a lot. I think he's got someone at every position that you're like, that's a good piece to have. Even receiver, it's maybe a little weaker at the top, but he's got good depth. And I just like the name Justin Jolly at tight end. I don't know who that is, but you know the vibes are going to be good when that guy's on your team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's solid. Bryce Young is certainly a question mark. He had what, like 6 good games that just happened to be at the end of the season last year. So we'll see how he does moving forward. And Luther Burden, yeah, I mean, huge question mark. He had 2 games with more than 5 receptions against the Browns and against the injury-riddled Niners, respectively. So we'll see if he can do anything at all.
It's good insight. You did your research on this.
Yeah, I just pulled it up right here. But yeah, I don't like. I'm a Luther Burden hater. Honestly, I would not have drafted him.
Okay, and the one tight end to rule them all. Obviously, Grant had Brock Bowers in the league last time. Makes another big splash here, drafting Trey McBride early. Another very solid team. And if I know Grant, and I do, he will be making a move to add to this team. He is not a built for the future kind of guy. And I think he should be going for it. Just needs some more help at receiver. I really like his running backs and quarterbacks. Might have enough to string it along, especially Jacoby Brissett could really add some value. He was a fantasy, I think he was a top 12 something guy last year. So if he can repeat that, could really be a dangerous team this year.
Yeah, I don't really have many thoughts on this team other than I do like it a lot. I just think it's interesting. I see it looks like he has both Titans backup running backs, so that's just kind of a fun thing. If anything happens there, he'll have that room cornered. Not that it's a great running back room to have cornered, but still. But yeah, I think it's a good team. I think having JSN and Trey McBride is a really strong foundation for a team.
Yeah, I like the squad. Yeah, that wide receiver room is tough. He's definitely been in talks to kind of down tier off of JSN, maybe bolster the room. And I'm also Kenneth Walker and Brees Hall are 2 guys that I don't like in fantasy either. They both are like consistently running back 20s, and yet they seem to get valued really high, but they're 25. They're not really that young anymore. So I don't love that running back room because it's not super elite production right now, and it's not like high potential for the future. These are guys who can hold down this position for the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm curious to see what moves Grant makes. We know he'll probably make 20 by the time the season starts, but yeah, definitely some question marks on that squad.
This team, I can guarantee, will be unrecognizable by week 6. Guarantee. All right, and then another newcomer, Tucker Cromwell. We all know him. We all love him. I did not love his draft, though. I'm pretty out on Jalen Hurts. You just hear a lot of dissenting opinions, pieces coming out of the Eagles camp. And Malik Neighbors, the knee's starting to worry me. I think in redraft, I'm totally out. So I don't think this year um, Tucker will really be going for it. So I would maybe like to see him maybe even move off of Jalen Hurts or some of his older guys, Jalen Warren, people like that. I don't really think has a tight end room. So we'll see where he wants to take it this year. Maybe neighbors will prove me wrong, but seems like he's a year or two away from competing. So be interested to see what moves he makes this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Neighbors being so young definitely gives you the leg up to be like, okay, I can kind of sit on an injury season for him if he's not going to be back until like maybe week 4 or 5. But yeah, I think Tucker is one that we could definitely see very quickly move off maybe a Jalen Waddle and then later on maybe a Pitts or a Jalen Warren, just trying to recoup some assets and look for the future with a Neighbors and a Genty and some of those other guys who are on the younger side.
Yeah, all I have to say is that I just like the description of frisky, and it's for our next team as well. And if I know Tucker and if I know Zach, then that is a perfect description for those two guys.
Yep. And speaking of
I
Zach,
don't know
who
Zach,
you
but
don't know, yep, I was gonna say you don't know at all. I think does have the best team name though. So Tucker, another guy I'm gonna need to be seeing a team name out of. But Love in the Spectrum obviously got Jeremiah Love. Will just be a fun player to watch. Nice young player. Another guy, depending on the first couple weeks, could also be a big seller. I just see Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Rico Dowdle, all guys kind of maybe nearing the end of their fantasy life as they transition to whatever's next. But even guys like George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, this team is nearing a last dance, in my opinion, um, for being a real contender. Does have some young guys though. Mecca Ibuka, obviously, Jordan Tyson, Jeremiah Love, Lamar Jackson's not exactly the youngest guy, so I do think he'll be a guy to watch the first couple weeks. I know he usually tends to want to go for it, so he might try to string it along a little bit longer than maybe he should.
yeah, it kind of reminds me of Isaac's Warriors with the little two timelines approach. And I am interested in Kittle. I think that could be like diet CMC in terms of like depending on how he does, maybe that kind of shapes where Zach decides to go. I just think I've heard a lot of different things about Kittle and if he's going to be back and when he's going to be back. And I've heard some people saying to pick up Tonjes because Kittle might be out longer than yada yada yada. And that's kind of his top tight end. So I think there are some things early in the season that could determine which of those timelines he wants to commit to and if he wants to commit to one or the other.
Yeah, I definitely. I don't love Emeka Egbuka either. Like he was kind of touchdown dependent and definitely fell off later on the season. Godwin's coming back healthy, so I don't love him as like your wide receiver one. I don't think he has quite that ceiling. And Tyson there with Olave as well is going to cap his ceiling. So I think his wide receiver room is really going to hamper his chances. And I do think we could see him being one injury away from moving off some guys, maybe Jonathan Taylor regression year as well. I definitely think this is someone who we could see kind of doing a fire sale come week 6, but we'll just have to see how Jeremiah Love does as well.
Who does Isaac love? That's my question. Every team, it's
I've,
like,
I've said
yeah,
I
they
don't
don't
love
love.
2 teams. I only call out the players I don't like. I don't call out the
Hmm.
players I do like. And
Maybe we need a positivity corner segment where we talk about the ones we do like. Just something to
Yeah.
think about.
Well, I think maybe he'll have a team he
yeah,
likes coming up
if I have guys I like there, hopefully on my team.
pretty quick
Hmm.
here. Um, Look, Isaac, you hate to say it, probably one of the better drafts that I saw, really built around that wide receiver position. But that's kind of the blueprint we saw Anderson win his titles with. It's just kind of what you hear any other media. They just have such a long shelf life, and his average age here being 24, with Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson, Drake London, Michael Wilson, who maybe if he could continue the tear he was on at the end, and even older guys like Terry McLaurin. Um, he's a guy looking to compete now. I think he would probably say Bucky Irving, Cam Skattebo dependent, both coming off of injury seasons. But if they can kind of get back to the dominance they were on, I could see him trying to pick up one more piece and go for it this year.
I'll defer to Isaac on his team. I'll let him talk about his guys.
Yeah, I mean that was the goal. Picking at the 112, of course, getting to be the first person to pick my draft slot. I really was not expecting Amon-Ra to fall that far. He's been wide receiver 3 the last 4 seasons, so I think that's kind of a super steal for me there at the 112. And then yeah, I'm really really high on Skattebo. I've got him in another league. He was producing like at 19 points per game before he got hurt, but it's a injury that's not really going to hamper his physical abilities. And Bucky as well, if he can get that shoulder right, is an elite running back in fantasy. So I'm really happy with the squad. I think I have by far benefited the most from the redraft because I had like one guy on my team and 5 late draft picks for this bad 2026 class. And now I think I've basically jumped about 7 years into the future. So really happy with how
No
this turned
doubt.
out.
Sweet, you sat down in the chair the weirdest way possible right there.
That was intentional. Sometimes when you're at the beach in a tropical environment, as I am, you just decide to get a little bit wild. So that was on me.
Yeah. Um, Dalton Kincaid though is your tight end.
Hmm.
You only play one.
It's true. Could play multiple. That was my saddest thing. I was gonna draft from the 11 or 12. I was gonna go Bowers, McBride, Loveland, first three picks.
That would be crazy.
It's tight end
Oh
premium.
my goodness. I
Would have been interesting.
it would have
I mean,
been.
tight end is basically like your fourth flex, you know.
Yeah. And Crawdad 14, Carter King. He actually was in our league previously, just contributed absolutely nothing. In his defense, I guess he did not draft his original team. But this is just a guy who does not understand Dynasty. Showed it, I think, with the draft. Going from Josh Allen, obviously not a bad pick, but straight into James Cook and then a Brock Purdy in the third. I don't know. No receivers your first four picks just doesn't seem great for me in Dynasty. And I think it's just a guy who just does not get it.
Hmm. Yeah. You mind if I oh, you mind if I take a look at the team again? Um, yeah, it is just a weak wide receiver room, which I think is going to stand out in this league. The one thing I will say is that I do think wide receiver is a position that's a little easier. It can be a little easier to upgrade that because it just feels like there's more of them and they're going to last longer. But that being said, I don't think Craw is necessarily the guy I trust to go out and get a receiver. We had this last year in our college league where Will Nixon had a really good team, but his receiver room was garbage and every other position was great. And we were like, just get a receiver. Like, just go to someone. Hey, you have this really good receiver. I'll give you a first. Done. Like, it'd be simple and he didn't do it. And I think the same thing could happen to Craw. I think he's pretty solid at a lot of other positions, and I think he could upgrade at receiver if he wanted to. Will he? I do not foresee that happening.
Yeah, I definitely just like looking at the draft. Josh Allen's 1-1 is a gimme, but then James Cook at the 212, Purdy and Chase Brown are his first four picks. Like, that's a really tough startup in a dynasty. If this was a redraft league, he would be killing it. Like I would love that start for him, but in dynasty, that's a really tough look. And definitely, I think is someone that if he's active, we could definitely see moving some pieces at the deadline, especially those running backs who are going to lose value pretty quickly, especially like a Derrick Henry if he's still producing. So I think there is an avenue for Carl to really up his value come the trade deadline, moving some of these players to contenders, acquiring some firsts and younger players. But it just depends on if he's willing to kind of commit enough to the league for that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is the if he'll commit. Obviously, even in the last league, he had Stafford and Henry and all these guys and just wouldn't trade them. I think he will. This will be a make or break year for him if he will sell. I just don't see him making a push here. Um,
Yeah, make or break is huge. If he doesn't sell and he runs the squad next year,
yeah,
he'll get half the value out of
these
these
three
guys.
especially, like you could see people buying this year, but after that, I just think they're off a cliff after this. Okay, moving to our second fraud.
Who was our first fraud?
Mason was a fraud, I believe.
But he
Yeah,
was ranked number one. That makes no sense.
we've agreed the value system. How he is one doesn't make any sense at all. I think Brock Bowers is really holding him up.
Must be.
It is also funny to me the tight end rooms, like you'll have the number one tight end room, but it's just Brock Bowers. And like nobody has two good tight ends. You might
Carter
be the
actually
only
I
has
have
one.
two. I have two
you might be
decent,
the only guy.
and clearly Sleeper did not like this. A lot of people didn't like a lot of things about my draft, which is fine. And I'll admit it didn't turn out quite like I thought. I did have the intention of trying to go really, really young, and just do that way, but it felt like some people even went younger than me on that. And so, by the time I got there, now I'm just kind of in a weird spot in the middle. I like my tight end room. I think a lot is going to depend on these running backs. If Judkins and Henderson can actually Judkins, I think was before he got hurt, but Henderson kind of really becoming number one guys and breaking out. So I think there's talent elsewhere, but yeah, it does feel like I'm not the rebuild team you would want, but I'm definitely not the contending team you would want. And Puka kind of does stick out like a sore thumb to me. So I'm definitely going to have some decisions to make.
It's definitely that Bugatti meme where it's the bad house, but I mean, you have the Bugatti still. Maybe you'll make another trade where you trade away, I don't know, Justin Jefferson for the four first round picks. Um, it wasn't a bad trade, just never came to fruition for you. And I did like the Jackson Dart pick. I was kind of expecting him to fall to me later on in the second, but um, go get your guy.
Yeah, we'll see. I did. Isaac was clowning me on QBs, which it was really fun when I sent the notes app thing. It was like I never wanted a QB. That said, should I have got a QB2 earlier? You could make the case, but I like Malik a lot, not in terms of like actually being good, but just personally. And so I'm excited to have him on the team, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate some of the ideas of your squad. Like I do like Loveland and Kraft as two tight ends. I think that's really solid. Kraft would just be a flex. Puka's of course Puka. Looks like he's going through rehab, doing really well. So excited what comes next for Puka in his personal life. But that quarterback room, like there is a legit scenario where you could hit week 9 and have like no quarterbacks that are playing on your roster. Like Malik, like Jackson Dart has such the injury questions with his concussions and stuff. Aaron Rodgers is old, right? He takes one tackle from Myles Garrett, and he's going to physically die on the field. And Malik Willis, you could see getting benched or something similar because he's only started like 3 games in his entire life. So there's definitely a scenario where all of a sudden you have no hope because of kind of that vacancy there at quarterback. But there's also a scenario where Malik does really well and the squad works out for you. So
Yeah.
we'll see what
Tucker
happens.
Tucker Kraft, Puka Nakua, Jackson Dart, and Aaron Rodgers all in one locker room. That's a pretty politically charged locker room. So we'll have to see how that turns out for you.
Yep, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I have been seeing the stuff about Jackson Dart, and it seems like his boys are good with him now. We'll see how that turns out.
Yep. All right, moving on to me, free four. Um, Went quarterback my first 2 picks, kind of tried to lock it up. And then obviously we just want to build around really smart, cerebral locker room guys, um, and Rashee Rice. So I obviously don't have any running backs. I'm kind of in a feel it out first couple weeks, and we'll see where we are. Kind of need two of Gadsden, Brian Thomas, and Carnell Tate to be pretty good, and I think I could go for it. But otherwise, we might be selling some pieces
Yeah, I really like the wide receiver room. I feel like your draft through round 8 was like really solid. If you look at it, shoring up that wide receiver position, I think is really valuable. But man, I think Grant said it in the chat that running back room is a jump scare.
Yeah.
That thing is terrifying to look at. And obviously, that's one of the easier positions to upgrade for old expiring vets. So that's certainly something you could push for if younger players start hitting. But it's also makes it that you don't have a lot of players that you could sell if things went south. Like you can move off of T. Higgins, but most of your other players are kind of younger. You want to hold on to them. So I definitely think you are going to be just very reliant on what your younger players produce.
for sure.
Yeah, I think you're good at the positions it's important to be good at. You've got the quarterback position filled, which, like Isaac said, there will probably be teams that struggle to find two competent quarterbacks. And surely, and you have so many good young receivers. Enough of them are going to break out. But it's just filling those other holes that's going to be important.
Mm. Okay, and the New York Thicks. Does that mean anything to y'all? New York.
Yeah, it's a reference to a segment Carter and I did where we compared our Dynasty fantasy basketball teams to real life NBA teams. And I said Austin was the New York Fix because he had like Luca and Sengun and a bunch of other fat people on his team.
This was the other podcast that I almost got kicked out of the other league for because Sager saw it as such a betrayal.
I didn't kick you out.
Well,
You
there
were
was
almost
talk.
relegated.
Right. I've had my share of scandals. I'm a scandal-ridden team in that league.
This is true. Um, yeah, but Austin Davis, great guy. Can't wait to grab a beer with him and Anderson. Um, Very good running back room. Kind of the only guy to go all in on running backs early on with Bijan and Achan.
Mhm.
Is that how you
Yeah,
say it?
sure.
Achan?
I say Achan.
I think that's wrong.
Or
Um,
wait, no. When I say Devon, then Achan sounds right. But alone, Achan. It's like a paradox.
yeah, I don't remember. But I like the Cam Ward pick. I was kind of surprised how far he went in a fairly Titans heavy league. I think he could be a kind of guy. Like I remember drafting Brock Purdy kind of late in our startup after his first year. This could be a pick where you're like, how did he end up going that late? All the signs were there. He was a first round pick. So I think he could have got good value there. Um, but just kind of another guy. All right, so he has quarterbacks. He has his running backs figured out. But another guy I expect to be a buyer at the tight end or receiver position. Um, as we move on.
We'll have to see. I mean, speaking of Austin's history, he definitely did better in this draft than he did in our other one. But in our last one, he drafted Lamar, CJ Stroud, and Cam Ward with three of his first four picks. CJ Stroud in the second round, by the way, and traded all three of them before the trade deadline of our first season. So this definitely is a team that I could see looking drastically different come the trade deadline, potentially losing all of those running backs. Olave may be out of the room. So we'll see what happens with Austin's team. I definitely think we could see a bunch of moves here, though.
Yeah, this is another team where I actually am pretty high on Austin. I think he's learned from kind of the rash moves he made in our other league. And I think earlier we were talking about Isaac. It was like tight end, you only need one. I think Jake Ferguson is fine. Obviously, you can have more, but it's nice to have more. And I think like receivers really his only super weak position unless something happens at the quarterback room, and it's possible to go out and get receivers. So I actually expect Austin to be a little more patient and hold on to some of these guys. And if it comes around where like Ferguson's a fine tight end. His running back room is as good as we think it's going to be. I could see him making one nice move for a receiver and being in it. So I'm actually pretty high on Austin. I like this team a lot.
And TJ the player, the only
The
trust
only one
process,
with trust the process by his name.
the guy who's, you know, when people are selling at the deadline, the question will be, okay, can I tank harder than TJ?
Hmm.
Will be, is it even worth it to try? But does have some pieces. Actually, I think I might have overreacted a little bit. He actually does have some pieces. I really like Tyler Warren, um, Omarion Hampton, Jaden Daniels. Okay, I might have overreacted a little bit. He's got some guys in some places, young guys, so maybe he won't compete this year, but he's it's not a hopeless situation, um, by any
Because we have a max PF tanking system, right?
correct.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be like, I mean, I'd have to go and look at all the other teams again, but I wouldn't pencil him in as a lock for the first pick. Like, he's going to have quarterbacks that play. He's going to have at least one pretty good running back. He's going to have tight ends that play receive. Like, he's got some pieces for sure. So I actually think he's in a really good spot. I wouldn't pencil him in for the number one pick unless he tries for it. I think he could be around that range, but especially the quarterback room is like, it's a good situation to be in if you're trying to get the number one pick. Like, maybe you have more actual solid players there than you would really want. But I think he's definitely got some pieces on this team.
Yeah, I'm definitely lower on TJ than y'all are. I really dislike the Tyler Warren pick in the third. I think that's just way too high for a tight end who really was not doing much after week like five. I had him on my team in the other league, moved off him because of that. He wasn't doing anything. I'm out on Marv. Mekhi Lemons got Jalen Hurts thrown to him, and Mekhi's not necessarily the biggest receiver to replace AJ Brown, so certainly some questions there. And I think Tootin's going to end up in the committee. I don't think he's going to be very valuable. So I think if I had to like put money on who's getting number one pick, I would undoubtedly put it on TJ. I think it's
Hmm.
team. But I do like the comments making about that quarterback room. That's the toughest one to really have a solid room. So having young guys where just he never has to think about it with his high draft picks. He can just lock in who's the best skill position player available. For example, that wide receiver coming out of Ohio State next year. So I like where TJ's at in the next year or so, but I would have loved to see him be more of a contender in this league just because he is in the hardest tank of all time in our other league.
Hmm.
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith would fit like a glove onto this team. So we'll see if he can pull that off.
It also he probably wants Mendoza to not play at all this year. And it'd be kind of like getting two first round players next year. It's like when Steph Curry
Mhm.
got hurt his rookie year. So you kind of double up. So it'd be kind of
Hmm.
interesting to see. Could have a pretty quick turnaround.
I agree. I think he's solid. Obviously Isaac and I are a little different in that respect, but we'll see if he gets the number one pick. I'll be curious to see.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have. I think that was pretty fun.
Thanks for tuning in to the Unknown Podcast.
Unknown podcast. Needed more
Everyone was
latitude.
everyone was clowning Reddit, but I think it was pretty fun to look at those comments. Maybe if there's more fun league situations, we can get active like
Yeah.
that again. That was pretty fun.
I would
Uh,
also be down. We might. It's kind of fun. We might need to bring back the dollar for anytime a player gets arrested because it was kind of fun.
It is, and $1 is such a low amount that it really doesn't feel like it's putting you out very much. I guess we'd have to see how often this actually happens, but it is sad that it went away so quick. That's part of a few people commented this. I didn't include this, but a few people were like, people are probably upset that it ended so fast, which I do think was part of it. It was like, dang, this already ended. Like that's a shame. So I wouldn't be against bringing it back personally.
Yeah.
But
My
let's be honest, it'll just matter what Sager thinks, and the rest of us, who really cares?
Okay.
So we'll see what he decides
All right. You're not wrong. Okay, well, thanks for watching. That was great. Maybe we'll do it again someday.
someday.